Hey guys, how you going? Today in this video we'll be talking about landscape photography, travel and capturing the world around us. Let's talk about it. So I've personally been lucky in my time to have been able to travel a lot with my family and by myself. And it was my trip to the United States that really started my passion for landscape photography. I was about 16 or 17 and we'd gone to the States. We went to New York, Hawaii, LA and Las Vegas. So pretty popular photographic options around there. The first real big field day I did with my dad was to the Valley of Fire National Park in Nevada. And some of the sights out there were incredible and really pushed me and inspired me to not only take awesome photos on that day and the rest of the trip, but also inspired me to, wherever I went, to take photos and document all the things that I saw and keep those memories, take them home with me and then broadcast them for other people to see. And that trip is really what started my affinity with landscape photography and capturing all those special moments. So the Valley of Fire National Park had some awesome colors, rock formations, the sand, the dirt, the blue sky, the canyons. It really took my breath away and made me think about all the possible things that I could do with photography for the rest of my life basically. And fortunately since then, as I said, I've been able to travel a lot with my family and go to a few different places. So I'll be showing a few photos that I took over that time over the course of this video while I'm speaking, and you'll get an idea of my sort of progression from the start of when I started taking these photos and to where I'm at now. So you can probably see some of the pictures now still use that white square crop that I used in some of my football images, which we talked about in the last video. And I really liked using like a vertical or horizontal crop to emphasize height or distance or mass in regards to a building or a rock formation or something like that. And I think that was just one of the early stages of my, well, that obviously was one of the early stages of my editing and photography career, and I won't be using any more square white crops now, but I felt that I was on a really good roll in regards to how I was taking the photos on that trip, because it was just such an inspirational time for me in regards to the types of photos that I was taking. And unfortunately at the time, as I said, it was still relatively new to me, the whole photography thing, and I unfortunately took all of the images on that trip in JPEG format, and I didn't even know what RAW was at that stage. So now I won't be able to blow up those images for a print or anything bigger than A4, which is fine because it was my first trip, but I really wish, I mean, it's not every day you get to go to the States, let alone New York and Hawaii and all those other places. So I still took those photos and I still posted them on my Instagram, and they're still very fond memories of mine, and it definitely was a learning experience. The next big step for me was going to Hong Kong with my dad again, and that was a big introduction to street photography for me. Obviously Hong Kong is a big, bustling, crazy city, and pretty much every street corner and alleyway is a different story to tell, and I basically walked around for 6 or 7 days straight with my camera attached to my arm, and everywhere we went I was like pretty much filling up a memory card every day. It was so weird to think that, because I'd only been to the States maybe 8 months before Hong Kong, and it was all the States photos were pretty much without people. It was just of the landscapes and the scenic sort of imagery around those areas. Hong Kong was different, and it was different because it was difficult to find a place without any people, and I was forced to take that into my stride and suddenly realised that I was still taking landscape photos, but it was just including people. And in some photos they were a focal point, in some photos they were just part of the scenery, like a bird would be part of a landscape image of a tree. Hong Kong city streets is still an environment and a landscape just the same as a Nevada desert. It's still creatures inhabiting an area, which I found really cool. It was sort of like a documentary to me of how people cohabitate and walk around each other, and it was definitely a bit of a culture shock for us at the time because we were just walking through the street, and obviously with that many people in such a small area, you just have people constantly bumping into you, and it was a bit of a shock at first, but we obviously soon realised that it's such a different place to where we normally live. If we walk down the street in our town, no one would be bumping into you because there's plenty of room to walk, but just the way that the city streets are planned out and how many people are in that area, it's just so congested and tight, it's sort of fun by the end of it because you're sort of dodging and weaving in throughout all the people, but it definitely was an introduction to a different style of, well, a different culture and a different style of photography with the street photography that came from that. So street photography has always been a fond genre of mine since then, and I still personally view it as a landscape style of photography, just with lots more people in it. My next big trip was the year after that. We went to Germany and Switzerland, and as a descendant from German and Swiss people, it was really awesome going back to where my family was from, visiting the roots of my family basically. It's really a special time to be with. It's really a special thing someone could do in their life is go back to where their parents or their grandparents originated from and get back in touch with the roots of your family. So I had so much fun taking photos in the Swiss Alps and the countryside, and the colours of the grass and the cows in the paddock and the colour of the water in all the lakes that are running down from the glacier tops is incredible. And we did a big hike up to the Trift Bridge in Switzerland, which was one of the best things I've ever done in my life, I would have to say. And I have these awesome photos of me and some of my family on this awesome suspension bridge, which was scary at first because you took one step on it and it was on such a steep angle you almost slipped down this big long wooden slide. But by the time you got to the other end and the sun had risen, the wood had defrosted and we were able to cross the bridge normally. But it was such a special experience walking across that and just being there and being able to photograph that whole thing was pretty special because I'm able to now take those memories home with me and put them out for the rest of the world to see and the rest of my friends and family to see who weren't able to come. That trip was 2 years ago now, the one to Germany and Switzerland, and since that time I've only been out of this country once, and that was to Thailand, only once I know. But since then I've really stepped up my photography gear and equipment and techniques. I've been able to get the lens I'm filming on currently, the 17-40mm f4 Canon lens, which has been really good for me in regards to landscape photography and fitting a lot of detail and image in one wide-angle lens. I've also since got a couple of filters, and I've only learnt about these recently, but I have a Hoya 77mm neutral density filter, which is variable, so I think this goes up to 10 stops and I can change how much light comes in, and this has been really good in regards to getting longer exposures during the daytime. So like this picture here, and I'll show a few of my recent photos using the longer exposures, getting pictures of waves flowing and getting all that motion and the detail in anything that's moving in the image to really flow and glide through an image, and having all those, like for example having rocks or rock formations be still in the shot and having the waves crash over those rocks. With the neutral density filter and a longer exposure, it allows the waves to look really creamy and smooth coming off them. And I've really found an affinity for that style of photography as well, especially living in an area as where I do, so close to the Great Ocean Road and all the different beach spots around there. And that neutral density filter and the area that I live in has been the impetus for me to start doing a lot of my prints, which I've been doing now of the local area, Great Ocean Road, Geelong waterfront, basically all the waterfront areas that my region is blessed with. A technique that I really like to employ whilst doing landscape photos, whether that be overseas or here at home on the Great Ocean Road, is to get down really nice and close to the ground and get a lot of detail in the foreground whilst getting a lot of background detail in, whether that be standing on top of a pile of rocks on a beachfront or getting down close to some water where a waterfall's behind or in the background. There's a lot of different ways you can do landscape photography, and everyone has their own specific style And this video is just a bit of a discussion about the places that I've been and my own style of photography. And as I said, everyone's is different, but there's not one particular way to do landscapes. You can do it a lot of different ways depending on the subject that you have in the frame. So this video is just a bit of a discussion about my thoughts on landscape photography, a bit of a showcase on the places that I've fortunately been able to go to and take photos of. And the future of landscape photography for me involves most likely just getting heaps of photos over summer to start doing more and more prints of, as I've started to get a few prints out and around the city now, which has been really fun. And I think the key of landscape photography is that it is fun. And if you're ever stuck for something to do and you don't know what to take photos of, I guarantee there's always a spot near you where you can go out with your camera, with a wide angle lens or any lens, and go and take photos of that area. It is one of the simpler styles of photography that you could do. It can be simple if you want it to be. The better shots tend to normally happen in the morning at sunrise or at night at sunset, the golden hour, either morning or night. It varies with your level of commitment to what sort of photo you want to take. There's no specific good or bad time of the day to take a landscape photo, but if you can have the light on your side, it makes it a lot easier. So anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this little talk about landscape photography and why it's important to me. I'll hopefully have another video for you up within the next week. Hope you enjoyed this one. See you next time.